In this video, we're going to test fit the floor panels just to see how everything fits in. Okay, so some of the things that I've done so far, I've finished off this, the bottom bracket here, that one there, that wasn't done last time. This panel here for the seat support, that's just bolted on at the moment. So I'm using the bolt holes for the nuts that are actually on the panel that will hold down the seat when that's bolted down, just to make sure it sits in the correct spot. When I test fitted it just on the floor panel, there's some issues where they'll need some adjusting done to that part to make it fit, fit around the tunnel properly. But until I test fit it, I don't know exactly what needs to be shuffled around. So the floor will just sit in here on the back of those parts on the heel board, and slide this end in first, and then try and get it under here, and then just get it to sit where it needs to. And then of course, once the floor's in, then I'll actually put the toe board section in, because it's like it kind of has to sort of go in at the same time. I do believe that when it's manufactured, it probably the floor would go before the toe board, because that's how it would have to fit. There's no other way you could get that in there. Okay, let's go and grab the floor. Okay, so I've placed the floor into near enough its close position. What I need to do next is I still need to, on the panel, you can't see because everything's on top of each other, this panel that's underneath is for the seat support. That's the upright. I've got to get that ready to the point where I need to fit that in to see how the floor fits. Also, I need to just trim off the end of the existing toe board, because this needs to sort of be trimmed along down there, ready so I can get the butt weld for the actual toe board. So trim that down, and then I also need to work out the exact height for the floor and how that will sit. One of the issues is, and I'm still getting these measurements and test fitting things. The height of these panels here, though, these ones are the panels that go on the inside of the floor. So the inside of these, the upright part of the inside of the pannier, and it'll meet in a junction at this point here. This point here, it'll meet at a junction to form that triangle shape, which is inside. The issue is whether I butt weld these panels to the existing uprights. Do I do that first, or do I weld in the floor and then cut it and then join it? See, the issue of welding the floor in first is where the floor actually meets is probably sort of close to the location of the top of these. So that's the measurement I need to get correct before I decide what to do first. I think it's probably better just to butt weld these strips on first. I can line things up where that hole is for the seat belt. Even if it's slightly out, it's not going to matter. It'll still work so far. So getting the floor in the exact correct position where I need it. I mean, there's give or take. There's a bit of room for error. It is just a floor. I mean, as long as everything else will fit in okay, there's room to put the angle on. These corners can be adjusted. So there's room to adjust things to make things fit. I'll show you the other side. Okay, so on the inside, one issue is just getting the floor in the right spot. There is a bit of a gap down this end near the heel board. I mean, that isn't sitting flush against there, and I just can't figure out what it's stuck on, why it isn't moving. So the height shouldn't be an issue. Even if the height is like 1 millimeter out from the previous floor, I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. The main issue is getting the flex in the shell or chassis correct before things get welded in, but that doesn't affect this spot here. The other thing I just mentioned is these panels here, getting them possibly butt welded to the side panels before the floor gets welded in, because they sort of all seem to meet at that similar junction point at the top of that triangle. So that's one thing I need to get sorted out. But how it sort of sits seems okay. I mean, the position of this part was close to what it was originally, sort of lining up there. Alright, one other factor to consider as well is that if these edge pieces, if they're not put in until last, the issue is I need to put the vertical upright part on the seat support. That's got to go in, but that can't go in, and then I can't get these in afterwards. So these have to be sorted first, then the upright has to go in. So it's a bit of a case of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Does the floor go first, or do those parts go first? That's what I need to sort of figure out. And once I get everything test fitted, then I'll know the exact junction point, and then from there it should be okay. So what I've done now, I've taken the floor back out again, and this was a pain to do, finding spot welds. I think I'm at the end of dealing with all the spot welds. What I've done is I have trimmed this toe board, and that is the actual line which the piece I made will be butt welded to it. The next thing I have done is drilled some holes in the this is the board that goes underneath the seat mount, so that's been drilled on both sides, the holes in the top, so I can do the plug welds. The way that bolts on, it's got the captive nuts on there, so I'm actually going to just bolt it to the this support piece, and then refit the floor again. And I also need to put the two black strips that go on the sides, on the bottoms, get them all in place, so that way I can test fit it the best I can, because I'm still trying to work out which option is better, to butt weld those strips onto here first, or weld the floor in first and then cut that, then put them in. So that's what I'm still trying to decide what to do. Okay, so that vertical piece, I've bolted that on, so it gets bolted into position. That way the plug welds will all line up and everything will be good. Here's a bit of the old floor section, the tunnel, and when that actually gets fitted onto that piece, I'll just turn it the right way. Actually no, this is the reverse, but still for the purpose of what I wanted to demonstrate, it actually fits. It actually, like, when it sits on there, when it's not, there's no pressure on there, there is a bit of a gap at the top, but I can push down on it and it flattens out. So the issue when I was fitting the floor previously, there was a gap between the tunnel and the top of this piece here. So there was a gap here, but everything else sort of sat nice. Just this bit here, there was a bit of a gap. So I may be able to put a screw in, just to hold it and get everything into the right position. Alright, so I think I want to actually see if I can get those strips that run along the side. There's probably room to squeeze them in underneath, and then get the floor in and do a test fit of the floor. Okay, so I've reinserted the floor. You need to keep in consideration that it's just sitting in there, held in place with just one strap, just to stop it popping out. Everything sort of sits okay. That sort of height there is okay. It'll fit the angle underneath. The other side's sort of a similar thing. It's slightly in a bit too much over there, but that's probably just a little small adjustment. Actually, you will see in a minute. If I go around to the other side. Okay, so I do believe, because it would be too much of a struggle to get this piece, the part that goes underneath the seat, it'd be too hard to get that in once the floor is all put in. So in order to get this piece in, that piece ideally, unless you want to chop it in half and slide each half in, it would be too hard to get this black strip in after the floor has been put in. And the reason for that is because it needs to fit underneath here, underneath that seat support. And then it's hard to get this in when the floor has been pushed in. So it may be the best option. That little bolt hole kind of does practically line up. It's just slightly out. And there is a bit of a gap here, but keep in mind nothing's sort of pushed in properly. That edge is against there. There is a bit of a gap here, but maybe I can get that to get sorted out. The other issue to this front end, and if you look down here, you'll see the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the floor needs to come up a bit by about 10 mil. The bend on that bar, that sort of lines up perfectly with there, and then the top piece up here, that's on that crease line too. So that is in the right spot. The floor could probably go down a little bit more. The way that these come, you still need to get this bottom angle pushed in a bit towards the floor anyway. So going by that hole here, I think the height of it is correct. It's going to, obviously, if it's butt welded to this panel, it's going to move down more, which is probably a good thing. The main issue is the height in this direction. That's the main thing that I was concerned with, because this angle piece can either get pushed in to fill up any gap that's in here. So that's not an issue there. Just down at the toe board end, so it'll need, there's not much of a gap there, and it is causing that to sort of push out a bit, but once this gap is filled in, that should lift in, and then hopefully that'll be okay. The other issue is underneath the tunnel there is still a bit of a gap, but keep in mind there's no screws or anything holding that together either. So the process of getting this together, it probably could be possible to butt weld these side strips up to like this point and then bend that up, so then you'd be able to get the floor in afterwards, but I think that's a lot more hassle. The other issue too is getting the floor in. You obviously wouldn't be able to slide it in with a full toe board on there. You'd need to make sure it's sort of cut back like mine, so I can sort of easily squeeze this point past that edge of that the mount for the steering rack, so that can get in that way. And then of course, in order to get these black panels in, if that's sitting where it is right now, you obviously can't slide the, so if that's there, you can't slide the floor in underneath it because of the way it sits in. So this panel has to go in after the floor is sitting in that edge piece there. So the plan will be, I'm going to get it down on its normal position, just flat on the ground, and then I will check the geometry, make sure everything's angled up okay, and then cut on these lines here. And then obviously the floor goes back in, everything goes back together. Another issue is that, or thing, if you're doing this, and you could possibly do it this way, take out this piece, but it is a bit of a hassle sliding that bit in because of the lip on here. So you can get this vertical piece slid in, possibly you can get that in, and then if that's the case, you could put the floor in and then put these bits afterwards and then slide that panel in underneath. So that's one other way that you could do it. It just depends on what you want to achieve. I've also taken measurements as well, so using a spirit level from like up here on the pannier top to the other pannier top, measuring the height in the floor. This end there's a little bit of difference, but not by much, but keep in mind that the actual ends of the floor can still move a bit. And does 5mm make a noticeable difference? I mean, yeah, probably not. One other issue too, down this end here, I can't get that floor to take up this gap here. It's just the way it's manufactured, because these parts here, even if I belt them in a bit more, it still doesn't really push right against there. But that part here will sit flat. If I was really wanting to get rid of this gap here, I can just put a strip of metal in there, weld it, grind it down, and then that would be fine. But the heights and the position, that's all the main thing. Alright, so I'll leave it there, and thanks for watching my videos.